In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we're going to be talking about, surprising, a Bears victory. We're also going to be talking about what the hell is going on with the Bulls. Also, a nice round of what's going on with the Blackhawks and sprinkling some baseball talk. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Season is going on right now, so make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Happy Bears Victory Tuesday to you and your family.
Oh yeah, I mean my daughter was so shocked. She's like, "Wait, the Bears won?" It's like, "Yeah, wow."
They won a high-scoring baseball score, but yeah, they won a division game for the first time in 2 years and 2 days. Do you remember when the last division game was that they won?
Was it Thanksgiving against the Lions?
Yeah, in 2021.
Okay.
That was also a 2-point win in a low-scoring game.
Wasn't it also a backup quarterback?
Andy Dalton was starting for the Bears that day, and it was against Jared Goff. So there was a backup quarterback. It was just for the other team. Both were called by Buck and Aikman, and the Bears won both on a Cairo Santos last-second field goal, where Joe Buck said, "Good snap, good hold, good kick." Like, literally listen to Cairo Santos's game-winning field goal call from this past week to the end of that game in 2021. It's literally the same. It's kind of funny.
He's the worst. It's weird. Like, I don't know anybody that's like, man, I love Joe Buck, but man, that guy just gets all the work.
Can I admit I've actually kind of come around to him?
Huh.
He's when he kind of jokes around, he's kind of funny. Now, I'm gonna make this very clear. When I was a kid, he was awful. He was as monotone, boring, and bland as you can get. But I feel like he's added a lot more personality over the last 5-6 years.
Okay.
And I'm gonna admit this too. I loved his call of the final out of the Cubs World Series. That was a great call. His call of the White Sox World Series sucked. He was like, "And the White Sox have won the World Series." That was awful. But his call of the Cubs final out, I liked it.
He made it sound more dramatic than it was, the final out.
I mean, Ryan slipped.
Yeah, but
It was a slow roller. Honestly, off the bat, I thought that was an infield single. It was a lot more of a definite play than I thought it was going to be. Now, I'm going to admit this too. I did not initially really notice the slip by Chris Bryant until I first saw the replay. But off the bat, I thought it was an infield hit. Then Bryant got to it a little quicker than I thought. And then the throw, and Michael Martinez was out by 3 steps.
it was a good way.
And it almost looked like he was, I don't want to say he was dogging it down the line, but it didn't if I was Michael Martinez, I would be putting every single bit of energy into that stride. And it didn't really seem like he fully did that, but I ain't complaining.
You know who I've really grown to enjoy is Greg Olson.
Yeah, he's good.
I don't like his partner, but he's really good. He's a lot of the announcers, I think, when they've been there too long, they get really stale or they've forgotten what it was that made them really good. Like Tony Romo has kind of become, it really happened very quickly with Tony Romo. I think
Yeah.
he at first was terrible. Then he found his stride and was really good. Now it's just like he's like, coasting. I don't really like Tony Romo anymore. Um, Chris Collinsworth is just really stale. Um, Troy Aikman, not really a fan of. Greg Olson, though, it's it's like he's still putting in that work and he's still grinding. And you're like, oh, okay, I like where this is. I like what he's doing right now.
You,
Um,
you know what's kind of sad? It's kind of sad to hear Al Michaels being a shell of his former self.
yeah, Al Michaels used to be the guy.
He's honestly, I think, one of the best sportscasters of all time. But
Uh,
boy, the past few years, and listen, the man isn't he in his 80s or
I,
close to it?
if he's not, he's real close to it. Um,
It's just sad when you see someone who was great for a long time and you can just tell that it's coming to an end and it's just not the same.
he's 79.
Yeah. So you can't blame him for it. It's just kind of sad.
I'm gonna throw this out there, and he's not eligible yet because he's still playing. I think Jason Kelsey will be very good.
I think so too. And I
He's
think people will love the personality.
he's really witty. He's funny. He's and those former offensive linemen, are really smart about things. Um, and I think you got a glimpse of it on Thursday Night Football when the Bears played.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that people will really enjoy the personality and that name carries a lot of weight. Like,
I
let's be
think so.
real.
I think so. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, it is Jason Kelsey a Hall of Famer. Um, you know, it's I think it was this morning or maybe it was yesterday. They on the radio they were talking to Olin Kreutz and they asked, you know, if Jason Kelsey he knew Jason Kelsey. He's like, oh, let me just say, Jason Kelsey has been quoted as saying he modeled his game after me.
I think he's a slam dunk for the Hall of Fame, personally.
I mean, possibly. Uh, Olin Kreutz was a heck of an offensive lineman, and he didn't sniff the Hall of Fame. It's weird. I think Jason Kelsey, I think playing for a team that won the Super Bowl and that, the acclaim of, I think a lot of it is the acclaim. You know, he got a lot of recognition when he had his speech during after they won the Super Bowl and he wore the Mummers costume. And then now with the podcast and other things and the commercials, I think he gets a lot of name recognition. I think sometimes that really goes a long way.
Here's the thing. I'm just going to throw this out there. Let's just quickly compare Jason Kelsey to Olin Kreutz. And I really liked Olin Kreutz as a player, and he was a darn good player. Kreutz was a 6-time Pro Bowler, 1-time All-Pro, member of the Hall of Fame All-2000s team. His AV, the approximate value, and again, this might be, it's kind of like your WAR in baseball. His career AV was 95. Jason Kelsey is a 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, Super Bowl champ, and his AV is 119.
Oh, there we go.
I mean, if that's not a Hall of Fame resume, I don't know what is. Could you argue that Olin Kreutz is very underrated? Absolutely. But I think when it comes to Kelsey being in the Hall of Fame, I mean, I think both those Kelsey brothers are absolute shoo-ins.
I think it's Travis Kelsey. Those Super Bowls will carry a whole lot of weight. I mean, he's very talented, and but I think they do end up both getting in.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Kelce is in the conversation of among the best tight ends of our generation. I mean,
yeah, he's, and it's funny, you look at both their ages and you're like, wow, they're just still productive, and you know, they're getting older.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and you're still watching a guy like Kelce as a tight end just dominate. And I mean, listen, he's got one of the best quarterbacks throwing to him, but he's been in the league since 2013. Travis Kelce has, and he has the fourth most receiving yards as a tight end in all of history. He has about 1,000 more right now than Shannon Sharp, and he's behind Antonio Gates, Jason Witten, and Tony Gonzalez. In terms of touchdowns, Kelce is, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth all time. And he's tied with Jason Witten. So the next touchdown pass he gets, he's going to pass Jason Witten. Jimmy Graham is fourth in all-time touchdowns.
I mean, he was really good.
He was very good. Very good.
Do you want to hear something crazy? Is Travis Kelce is the same age as Rob Gronkowski. And we look at Rob Gronkowski as like, man, he was slow and kind of at the end, struggled to make these plays, and Travis Kelce is still at the peak of his game.
Yeah, that's crazy. And again, it helps when you have a great quarterback, but you know what? So did, Gronk had Brady, and now Kelce has Pat Mahomes, but when you're a tight end, you don't just accomplish things because of the quarterback you have. There's more to being a tight end than just catching the ball. I mean, you're out there blocking, you're out there unmuscling every receiver or every defender that you're faced with. And you're making contested catches and using your strength to bring those balls down. That's not easy to do. And when you're a tight end, I mean, you got to know how to block. Even if you're not known for being a blocking tight end, there's a lot that goes into being a tight end.
Here's a career comparison between Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce. Kelce's played 11 more games, has 263 more catches for Kelce, has almost 2,000 more receiving yards. More receptions per game by 1.5. 7 more receiving yards per game on average. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So let's loop back to the Bears game. I don't know where to start on this, because there was, the victory, obviously good. It's nice to finally get one. It eases stops the bleeding and eases some of the pain. But there was a lot of good things, and then there was some not so good things in that game.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, when we're evaluating this team, we are looking at a number of things. One of the things that I think we can confidently say is that this defense is playing better. And regardless of the opponent, you're seeing them get pressure on the quarterback, and you're seeing them generate turnovers. And, we could say, hey, it was against Josh Dobbs and all that, but, until you played conservative and took your foot off the gas and played coward prevent, you were doing the same thing to the Detroit Lions, one of the top offensive teams in football. You were getting to Jared Goff, you were putting pressure on him, and you were taking the ball away from him. You are seeing the impacts that Sweat is making, and finally seeing the pass rush. And that's all really good. And you're seeing the linebackers tackle well yesterday. A lot of good things there. But Sean, what's the number one thing we're evaluating the rest of the season? The number one thing.
Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. And last night was a roller coaster, and there were moments that were quite ugly, and we saw a lot of the same inconsistencies. I mean, and again, you know, we've seen it where last week against the Lions in a loss, we were overall really happy with that performance, just in a vacuum.
Right.
And then yesterday, it wasn't as consistent, and you still have the fumbles late in games, and that can't happen. It just can't happen.
You know, it's tough to evaluate him from that game because there was, you know,
Play calling was shit.
You have to look at things. What was he asked to do versus what he did? And the one was a good play by the defense. He had 2 hands on it. Shouldn't have happened, but you know, it wasn't like he was being loosey goosey. The other one, that's on him. That was bad. But you know, it started with the offensive line. Nate Davis struggled. Braxton Jones struggled. Lucas Patrick struggled. And they were really having a hard time picking up those blitzes. There was a lot of pressure on Fields early.
There was.
And
Fields actually did well under that pressure.
Yeah, but
he made some plays.
Ideally, you want to see when that pressure comes, your quarterback step up in the pocket and either make your throw or be able to run going straight forward from the pocket rather than run backwards and then try to run around. But the center position is such just a disaster that that pocket collapses in the center and is collapsing around. So you see him running backwards to go places. That's a difficulty. The play calling was atrocious. Like, that was one of Luke Getsy's worst called games.
Yeah, and that is a factor in this because a lot of the plays that Justin Fields was doing was behind the sticks. And I want to make this comment too. I understand doing more of those types of screen quick plays against a team that's going to blitz a lot, getting the ball out. I understand going heavier with that. But some of the play calls and some of the situations when you were in Vikings territory, I believe it was the third quarter, and it was 3rd and 1, and you're throwing a long screen pass towards the sideline, towards Mooney, who was well covered, and they read it like a book instead of just going up the middle and getting a yard. That's what really drove me crazy, was stuff like that.
Or there was one point that they called the same play 3 times in a row.
Yeah, that's when I made on Twitter the Reptar Celia reference, if anybody saw that.
Yeah, and you know, I posted on there too, it's not just the play calls with Getsy, it's the personnel that he has in. So there was one where they threw the wide receiver screen, and does he have Equinemius St. Brown out there blocking, who's your best blocking wide receiver? No, you have your punt returner and Darnell Mooney out there, and they both whiffed on a block, and you know, no gain to DJ Moore. So you had the right receiver, but you had the wrong guys blocking. And it's so frustrating to watch because you're like, well, why don't you have the right guys in there? Why? And why are you calling the same play 3 times in a row? It's, if those wide receiver screens, they did okay in the first half, but when it was the second half, when you kept going to that well, they picked up on it, and they're like, oh, hey, this is what they're going to do. It's everything they do offensively. It's so predictable. And when things are predictable, you have to be that much better at your execution to make it work. Like, not saying if they, there's teams that like the tush push with the Eagles. You know it's coming, and they don't care. You know it's coming because they're going to do it anyway. Um, they're going to execute it. The Bears don't have that level of execution where if you know what they're running, that they can still beat you. They don't. So it's difficult when you have this really the play calling is very repetitive and predictable. Is you don't have that ability. I get that the Vikings blitzed a ton and they were able to create a lot of pressure, and you were trying to have shorter passes, but there's a lot of other things you can do.
Right.
You know, is is jet sweeps, uh,
Roll Justin Fields out,
roll
bootlegs.
bootlegs, hot, slant hot routes in the middle of the field. And the one thing that they didn't do was take deep shots to keep that defense honest. They just didn't do it.
No, even though you have DJ Moore.
Yeah, you didn't take those shots, and um, it's frustrating that how are you supposed to evaluate this quarterback if you keep putting him in positions that for him not to succeed? And like, I'm still of the mind that I I would not take a quarterback in this draft. Um, I would try to trade back a few spots, not 9, but stay within the top 5 and try to build around him. A Marvin Harrison Jr. or one of those stud tackles, and and even when he's flawed, and bring in a new coaching staff. And even though
And that's key.
we know Fields is flawed, he's still going to be more advanced than a rookie quarterback coming in starting day one. So I don't know. So yeah, Fields, there's a lot of things where we still don't know, but
It's the inconsistency that really hurts because things were looking promising on that first drive. And you remember, was it the second or third drive on the fourth down play where the Vikings just brought the entire house and he was able to just find Cole Kmet right in the middle of the field with a bunch of guys in his face, and it was 4th and 10 and they ended up converting. It set up a field goal.
yeah,
And you saw him early moving, getting away from pressure and finding an open man. But then later in the game, you saw the poor footwork on the throw to Darnell Mooney, and that ball sailed over his head, which could have been a long completion. And then there were times where he was holding on the ball and just kind of scrambling, looking downfield when he had protection, and just didn't throw the ball. And, those are the things that, that you go back and forth on and that are inconsistent. I do have one observation about Fields that night. You remember that play where his head just slammed on the turf, right?
yeah, and I was pissed. The NFL cannot say that they're trying to protect quarterbacks and allow those things to happen without any sort of repercussions.
And didn't they call roughing the passer on the Bears for something way, way less?
Yes. It was super frustrating that they don't protect Justin Fields. It just boggles my mind.
And, regardless of what happened, whether it was called or not, after his head slammed, I remember on the third down throw, he threw a ball towards the sideline that was in the vicinity of Mooney, what was clearly behind him. It went out of bounds. And, I don't know if there was a little miscue there, but it just, after he got up a little wobbly, I was just wondering, I'm like, oh, after his head hit the ground like that, I don't know. But with the inconsistent play from Fields and obviously the bad play calling and the personnel in the field and whatnot. We also have to give props to Justin Fields. He did lead a game-winning drive.
Yep, he did.
After all that, he led a game-winning drive. The big play was the throw to Darnell Mooney, who is now at 1,000 yards on the season. Good for him. In week 12, he's already at 1,000 receiving yards. But, it was 3rd and 10. He drops back. Mooney's open downfield, gets it to him, sets up the game-winning field goal by Santos. And we saw plenty of situations where in an opportunity to lead a game-winning drive, it ended in a fumble or a pick. And this time, he drove him downfield. They got the kick with 10 seconds left, and that sealed the win. So I got to give him those props.
Yeah, I mean, he did that. That was the one saving grace of, and I'm going to say that I totally saw that last touchdown coming. I'm like, oh, here we go. Here's where the Vikings come down and score a touchdown.
Yep.
And then we fall behind late. And I was like, the only saving grace of this is getting to see Justin Fields drive down the field for a game-winning drive. And I'm like, that's important. It's important to see practicing, your 2 and 4 minute offenses in practice. That's that's one thing, but actually having it in a game is a complete another thing.
Now, and here's something too that you have to point out about that game-winning drive and how it was set up. The Vikings recovered the second Fields fumble like around midfield. All they really needed was a few more yards. Even if they didn't get a first down, if they would have gotten 4 or 5 more yards, you were looking at like a 57, 56-yard field goal. When they made that 3rd down stop, and that was, 2-3 yards behind the sticks, when the Bears made that stop, that made the potential attempt for a field goal about 61, 62 yards. So, pretty hard to do. Very risky attempt, because if you miss that, you give the team the ball back in midfield. But with that stop, that forced the Vikings to punt. And you could kind of thank the Vikings for playing really, really wishy-washy instead of just going, because if they pick up a first down there, they probably win that game. If you get a first down, you kick a field goal, the game's probably over. And even if you didn't get a first down and you kick a field goal, you're forcing the Bears to drive down and score a touchdown, something they didn't do the whole game.
Well, the Vikings were weird. There were times they went super aggressive where they went for that 4th down, like at midfield.
Mm-hmm.
And then defensively at the end of the game, they'd just been sending the pressure at that point, like almost 60% of the time. And then suddenly, when it's crunch time, they just drop back into coverage. And what the hell are you doing? Every time the announcers were calling it. All the fans were just, everybody's waiting. Like, okay, this is where they're sending the house, right? This is where they're sending everybody, right? And they didn't. And I think they would have had better results doing that, because that's where you see the collapses, is when you just put heavy pressure on Justin Fields because he's trying to do too much and that offensive line is not holding, and then that force combines to a mistake being made, and they didn't. They gave him that time. You're like, okay, what the hell's going on? So there's a lot of questionable things that the Vikings did and didn't do, and that it were helpful. But at the end of the day, the Bears outplayed them. Except for that one drive, the Bears defense stifled that Vikings offense.
They did. And I think seeing you generate 4 turnovers again. I mean, what is that? 8 turnovers in 2 games, in your last 2 games?
Yeah, there's a lot of turnovers for a team that wasn't causing turnovers. And this defense was trending in the right direction from the time Eberflus took over calling plays. And then they went, you were watching improvement. And then when they brought in Montez Sweat, you saw a meteoric rise in the abilities of that defense. And
Hmm.
you're seeing uh Javon Dexter look like a dude. He's starting to look like a dude.
Yes, he
Uh,
is.
Billings is looking like a dude. He is a run stuffer. I mean, statistically, if you're going average yards per game, the Bears have the number one run defense in the NFL.
73 rushing yards against the
Uh,
whole game.
and so, and now you're able to generate some pressure, and not from Yannick Ngakoue, by the way. Whew, he's been tough. But
I kind
Montez
of forget he's even there.
Montez Sweat and Javon Dexter are providing some good pressure, and it's allowing those defensive backs to jump routes, deflect balls. A lot of these interceptions have been on deflections. Deflect the ball, catch it. And just imagine how many more there would be if Jalen Johnson wasn't Kevin Malone trying to carry the chili in the office.
I mean, Jalen Johnson's coverage yesterday was just phenomenal, but he had another potential pick six dropped.
That one, I don't know if it would have been a pick six because he
It may
had
or may not have, but
Hawkinson right there. The one last week was like it would have been a cakewalk into the end zone.
oh yeah, he could have backpedaled the whole way on that one. Either way, it was a pick right to him, but his coverage continues to be great, and he did get another interception in the game. And I mean that was a lollipop throw, but hey, he came down with it.
I'm not shitting on him at all because he's played really well lately, and
Yeah.
but you've got a lot of Bears cornerbacks that are playing well. Kyler Gordon, noticeable because of that pass interference that I mean, I'm okay with it, I guess, but it's weird. It's weird when they go ticky tack versus not. But he's played well. Terrell Smith has played really well. Tyreek Stevenson has been playing well. Obviously missed yesterday's game.
It was a bummer when he was ruled out.
It's a bummer because he was healthy going into the week and got injured during practice. So
Well, and I was confused. Yeah, because I was at first confused when I saw him on the injury report. I'm like, wait a minute, did he get hurt last week?
he injured during practice.
Yeah, that's too bad.
So hopefully that's not too bad. And he's able to come back soon. But Smith's been playing well. So the defense as a whole just played really well. But there's one thing I hate having to shit all over the referees, but good grief, with this some bad officiating.
I mean, the Kyler Gordon thing with the mask, that was freaking ridiculous.
They doubled down on a bad call. Like, okay, if you throw the flag and he's just like, my helmet broke. And then you meet and discuss and you go, oh, we picked up the flag. I can see his helmet, the face mask is broken off. Like, but they doubled down on it and gave him a taunting penalty. Like, what? He's showing you his face mask is broken.
Mind-blowingly dumb.
It was so dumb, and the NFL is going to triple down on that. And they're going to fine him. I guarantee you, they're going to fine him because they always back up bad officiating. And I'm going to say this: I've said it before, and I'm going to keep saying it: is the fact that the NFL is so in bed with the gambling industry, the poor officiating, because the NFL officiating, far and away of the four major sports, is the worst.
Yeah, and I mean, when just blatant ass things you see, you have the right to ask questions.
I mean, the NBA, like some of those things, the fact they don't call traveling and ticky-tack fouls, like I don't agree with those, but they're fairly consistent. Superstars get it a little more leniency. It's more consistent. Major League Baseball is pretty good other than umpiring. And the umpiring, for the most part, when you don't, other than, like a Joe West or an Angel Hernandez, you throw those guys out. For the most part, even when you're like, oh, on my screen, that's not right, they're their, internal, uh, strike box is consistent.
Right, right.
They're letting the outside corner call for a strike consistently all night for both
Right.
teams. Like, other than these couple guys, it's fairly consistent. Hockey is really good. I think hockey officiating is pretty darn good.
Most consistent of any sport, in my opinion.
The NFL is
It's
so
bad.
inconsistent, so bad, and the fact that they are so in bed with gambling. If there was ever to be a downfall of this sport, it's going to be because of the officiating.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a lot of situations in the NFL where you say, I don't want to say this, but there almost looks like an agenda with this reffing.
Yeah, honestly. And I get annoyed when people are like, oh, everything's scripted. And I know it's a kind of running joke, but at some point you're like, I see these things and they don't make sense and to anybody. And the NFL, instead of going, hey, that was a bad call, they double down and be like, nope, that was the right call. And you're telling me that the thing I'm seeing with my own eyes is not what I'm seeing, and that's bad. Like, the NFL is so much money. These officials should be full time. This should be their only job, and they should be doing it year round. When the season is over, they should be watching film. They should be meeting. They should, when they're not in meetings with each other, they should be at home watching film and studying and looking, oh, hey, here's where my calls were criticized. Okay, I see why. The NFL, can they add more officials? Are they seeing blind spots in certain things? Could adding more officials? Can you make more things reviewable?
Yeah.
Like, those are the things to make it more consistent. People can live with, what is a catch? How long did it take us to figure out what a catch is?
Forever.
And if we make it consistent, then when we keep seeing it over and over, we get trained. Okay, it's always this catch. Even the process. I think the process is a stupid rule, but all right, once we get the process, we know the process. And if we keep seeing it be called the process, but when it's called one way in this game and one way in that game, and then the next season they change the process anyway, it's there's no consistency, and between the referees and the fans aren't seeing the consistency. It's mind numbing to me that the NFL can't get it right.
Right. It is.
What else with the Bears? Yeah, defense. I'm happy with the way the defense is looking. I, it would be nice if the offense could capitalize on turnovers, and be able to pad leads because their defense is helping them. But the defense is looking good, and it's frustrating because I think universally as Bears fans, we all want to see Eberflus fired. And because I think he's not a leader of men, and I don't think he's rallied the players, to the point where he should be doing that. I mean, even I'm sure everybody's by now has seen the video, the post-game presser, where people are on their phones texting while he's talking. Everyone's staring at him blank-faced.
Say what you will about Matt Nagy, but they didn't do that when he was here.
No, they didn't.
And I'm not here to defend Matt Nagy and say he was actually a great coach. Don't get that twisted.
Nope. It's perfectly acceptable to say something that a previous bad coach that you don't want back does well. Like, you can point out, hey, Matt Nagy sucked and I don't want him back, but he did this better. And you saw once Josh McDaniels got fired in in Las Vegas, the guy that replaced him, you saw how everybody rallied around him, and you saw the fire that he had, and everybody, followed that. And you don't see that with Matt Nagy. And I think he's a heck of a defensive coordinator. He's just not a head coach. And
You
the
mean
suck-
Matt Eberflus?
sorry, Matt Eberflus is a heck of a defensive coordinator. He's just not a head coach. And the
Yeah.
crappy thing is, is we're gonna have to play this game of how do we keep this defense playing at a high level next year after we fire him. We're gonna have to find a good defensive coordinator to pair with. And I'm gonna throw this out there is, uh, I'm for bringing in a young offensive mind and pairing him with a veteran defensive coordinator.
Absolutely.
And I'm even for pairing him with a veteran offensive coordinator too, is to help a young guy out. Even if the offensive minded guy wants to have the play calling duties, have a veteran in there is to help him out, because the more you can take off his plate, the better off you are. We've seen time and time again over the last 20 years, you pair a young offensive minded coach with a veteran defensive coordinator, preferably one that has head coaching experience, and and you let that defensive coordinator handle most of the defensive stuff, and that's where you're going to see your success. And I don't.
But we'll hire Leslie Frazier, former Bear great on 85.
And I also want to see when they bring in a new staff. I don't want it to be all people that have never had experience before. I want you to sprinkle in people that have had experience in that same position, not all people that are getting job upgrades.
Right.
Not everybody should be a promotion. Some people should be lateral or demotion even. It's okay to have fired former head coaches on your staff. They bring experience.
Yeah. I mean, he might not have been the best fit for some of the personnel, but you remember when they brought in Chuck Pagano to replace Vic Fangio as the D coordinator.
Yeah. I get what they were trying to do. It just didn't work out well. Is a former head coach and a defensive coordinator that's a veteran defensive coordinator to replace Fangio. It just didn't work with, what they were trying to do when the players they had. It was the right thinking, the wrong choice, and a bad result.
Right. And maybe not even necessarily a bad result, just maybe a slightly disappointing one. Because the defense under Pagano wasn't bad. It was just, and I also think too that the 2018 defense set expectations that were a little unreal. I think the most disappointing thing about the Pagano era defense was the decline of Eddie Jackson.
We've seen that decline for a while.
I mean, he was legit good last year. I think he's cooked now, don't get me wrong, but he was good before he got hurt last year.
Yeah, okay, fair. It's just it is just we're seeing bad. He didn't play very much last year, and we're seeing bad Eddie Jackson this year.
Yeah, he's fried. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious, but anyway, yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. And what sucks is that there's always this thought, we only have 4 wins, but like last night, we see them win this game. And the first thing I think to my, first I'm like, okay, great, Bears win. We finally won a game against an NFC North team. It's good to beat the Vikings for the first time since 2020. Beating a rival always feels good. But, then there's that haunting thought of like, this didn't bring a lot of good grace to Matt Eberflus, right? Because even though your defense played stout, it balled out, you won a game an ugly game 12-10, and the other team had a backup quarterback in there. And I'm going to say the quick list again. Matt Eberflus now has 7 wins in the NFL versus 20-some losses. The wins he have are against Trey Lance, Davis Mills, Mac Jones, who looks just beyond terrible. What's his face on the Commanders? I always forget his name.
Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, Brian Hoyer, and now Josh Dobbs. And again, I don't want to discredit the defense because the defense played really, really well yesterday, regardless of who they were facing. But a game like this should not flip the switch on a coaching staff. That all of a sudden things are good and fine. You won a game 12-10. Oh, and I also forgot to mention Bryce Young in that, team that's 1-10. This is the first time you won a game against a team above 500. And it probably would have carried more weight had Kirk Cousins not gotten hurt. But again, you had Josh Dobbs in there at quarterback. And even though Josh Dobbs started off really, really well at the Vikings, there was kind of that feeling that it was going to regress a little bit. But either way, I'm happy with the win, but if they scratch out another 1 or 2 wins, which I could see happening, considering their schedule, I mean, they could win 6-7 games. And that wouldn't save Eberflus's job, would it? Because I'm kind of worried that it would.
I don't know. I'm starting to hear rumblings that Kevin Warren wants to have more say in football operations and that he wants to bring in his own people or people that he's hiring.
I hope so.
And that leads me to believe that, Eberflus will be out and we can't unless, the only thing I could see is the only saving grace would be if they threw Luke Getsy under the bus as a scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
And brought in a new offensive coordinator. I'm not for that move. That would be the only saving grace. I don't think this coaching staff comes back with your 3, with Getsy, Eberflus, and your special teams coordinator. And he's done nothing to get fired. So what are you gonna do about throw him under the bus? He was fine. It's your defense is playing a whole lot better. Your offense is just terrible. And does it come down to they say, hey, you got to fire your offensive coordinator, and Eberflus says no, and do you clean house then? I don't know what the answer is here. I think he should go. I think you're better off finding a defensive coordinator that can do things for you, but and be building around your offense. But maybe you're like, hey, things are going well. Maybe we just bring in a new offensive coordinator. I don't know. I don't know the answer, but I'm under the mind that you probably keep Poles. We're starting to see, hey, look at these young cornerbacks he's brought in, the defensive lines he's brought in, the Montez Sweat trade. Like, these are all looking like super good moves. And you let him and Kevin Warren decide who's going to be the new head coach and what they're going to do with Justin Fields. That seems like the best strategy to me.
Mm-hmm.
And you look, like, the Panthers fired Frank Reich already, and they fired his whole offensive staff. And that was kind of a raw deal for that guy because he came in there and he wanted CJ Stroud. It was pretty clear. he and what's his name? That was the quarterback's coach. He used to play quarterback for the Bears.
Josh McCown.
Josh McCown. He and Josh McCown were salivating over CJ Stroud. That was their dude. And the owner came in and said, "Nah, we're going Bryce Young." And you know, handicapped there. It's tough to fire your head coach when you gave him a quarterback that he didn't want, and the quarterback he did want is in the MVP race.
Yeesh.
But Frank Reich gets fired, and here we are watching Eberflus call 8 wide receiver screens in a row.
Yeah, and I mean, you can break down the Bears' issues to a T, but at the end of the day, you're 4-8. And your 2 wins that you've gotten recently, I mean, really last 3. Look at the last 3 wins. You beat the Vikings and Josh Dobbs 12-10.
Mm-hmm.
You barely squeaked out a win against the worst team in football, 16-13. I mean, you were the less bad of the 2 teams by not very much. And before that, you beat Brian Hoyer, who people forgot was even still in the league at this point.
True.
I mean, you look at the other games this season, you were completely unprepared in week 1. You let a game that you really had no business being in, but were still in, slip away in Tampa. You got bulldozed and bullied against the Chiefs. I mean, that wasn't even a game. That was men versus boys. You choked hard against the Broncos. You choked hard against the Lions. You nearly coughed up this game to the Vikings away. A game that you outplayed them like crazy. I mean, the results at the end of the day have to speak. The most impressive win for the Bears by far was their first win against the Washington Commanders, because you legitimately blew them out. And I'm not saying the Commanders are great, but you weren't playing the 1-win Carolina Panthers or the Brian Hoyer-led, Josh McDaniels coached Raiders. And I hope that they understand that. And listen, you look at the rest of the way, you play the Falcons, that's a winnable game.
I mean, Detroit, not really a winnable game. I mean, you played them tough. You should have beat them the first time. I think they learned a lesson.
Maybe, yes.
Unless we're seeing them, start to be flat because they got their asses kicked by Green Bay.
Yeah, they did. Green Bay might starting to be figuring things out a little bit.
I still don't believe in Jordan Love. I just think they have a really good head coach.
They do have a good head coach.
Cleveland is a winnable game because their offense stinks, and who knows who's playing quarterback.
Right.
But that
you
defense,
play the Cardinals too.
But that Cleveland defense is real good.
It is.
So you might see another game like you saw on Monday night. Arizona, very winnable game. Atlanta is a winnable game, even though they've starting to look much better. And then you're in Green Bay, so we're just going to chalk it up as a loss, right?
Most likely, yes.
So I mean, best case scenario, you get 2 wins out of there.
I mean, it seems reasonable. And, frankly, I'm not worried about I mean, the thing that I'm thinking about right now is there are two things that a lot of people are thinking about, and this is how I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about how they evaluate the future. And whether or not Justin Fields looks good is what I don't want is a relapse in this coaching staff, because you're not going to win anything meaningful with this regime.
No.
You might beat some bottom feeders, but to beat legit teams, we haven't seen that at all. You've hung with them, but you haven't beaten them. And it was understandable in 2022 when you were kind of tanking here and you were playing for the draft pick. We understood that. But this year, you should have 2 more wins right now. If this coaching staff took a step forward and Luke Getsy's play calling was better and you were 6-5 or something like that, and you were in a playoff position, then maybe things are different. But you can't blow the Detroit game and the Broncos game and lose as bad as you did in a lot of those other games and still justify this going, because I don't think it's going to get much better. Now, in terms of the Bears, their own pick, not Carolina's, but their own pick, even with the win yesterday, they're still slotted at number 4. And really what I'm keeping more of an eye on is the number 1.
You know,
that's in Carolina's hands.
I mean, the thing is Carolina has basically a game and a half lead there, because they have 1 game ahead of anybody, and they would win based on strength of schedule versus Arizona and New England. For if they all tied with the same record, they have the strength of schedule tiebreaker. So Carolina would have to win 2 games, and even if Arizona and New England lose out, New England would have to win 2 games to lose that first pick. And I'm looking at their schedule for the remainder of the season. They've got 2 games against Tampa. Who Tampa's not great, but they've played tough against some teams. They've got the Saints, who are pretty good, Falcons, who are playing much better, the Packers, and Jacksonville, who is playing for the number 1 seed. So do you see 2 wins in there?
For New England?
No, that was
for Carolina.
Carolina. Do you see 2 wins in there? Like 2 more?
I think they win 1 more game. I think they're going to find another win. I don't know about 2, but I think they find another one.
If they win 1, then if they only win 1 more, there's nothing anybody can do. Bears will have the number 1 overall pick. Arizona has Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. That's tough. 49ers, that's tough. At the Bears, that's winnable. At Philadelphia, that's not good. And then they've got Seattle at home. And that one, I think Seattle is significantly better than Arizona. But anytime you have a division game, a lot of times the records really don't matter in division games. So I would say Arizona at most has 1 more win. And it would be either against Bears or Seattle. New England has the Chargers, who aren't very good, I don't think.
No, but I would not be surprised if New England loses out here. They look miserable.
They do. I mean, the defense looks good. That offense is just, I mean, I think they were the first team to lose 3 consecutive games where they gave up 10 points or less.
You think the Bears would be that team, but no.
Yeah, they got the Chargers, who are not very good. Then they go to Pittsburgh. I don't think they win that one. They play Kansas City. They don't win that one. They go to Denver. They don't win that one. They go to Buffalo. Then they're home versus the Jets. That Jets one's a winnable game. That Jets team is a disaster.
See, and I think I'm thinking New England might be more inclined to tank than Arizona. I'm not saying Arizona is going to win games, but if you're getting Kyler Murray back, and obviously you'd like as good of a draft pick as possible, but if you think Kyler Murray's your guy, you're not going to be as inclined to tank for a quarterback potentially like New England is, because Mac Jones is not the answer. Unless they really want Marvin Harris. I don't know.
Bill Belichick will not tank, but I don't think Bill Belichick's there next year.
Well, I don't think so either.
So what incentive would he have to tank? He's not going to be there. And do you think he wants to leave and then have a quarterback that's a stud? No.
I mean, that's true. Probably not. I mean, I know it's Bill Belichick, but I'm not saying either team is going to try to tank. But if you look at the benefits, New England really needs a quarterback.
Yeah, desperately. They got nothing. But yeah, I mean, the Panthers have such a stranglehold. It's gonna be tough to take away that number one pick.
It would just be nice if Arizona and New England can each win a game and give almost certainty.
If they each get a win, so they're sitting at 3 wins, then it's all but locked up.
Right.
Unless the Panthers, we'll see the Panthers this week. If the Panthers come out and shit the bed versus Tampa this week, and you're like, okay, they're cooked. They are cooked. Because if they don't get a spark from firing their head coach, then they are cooked.
Baked.
One more thing I want to say about the Bears game is, and this is an indictment on the coaching staff, is the Bears take so many penalties.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the tough one. I mean, turnovers suck, but these penalties, the Bears, they don't overcome them. Penalties on defense lead to scoring drives. Penalties on offense stall drives and leaves them punting. And you can't keep up with this number of penalties. But
no,
they've got a bye week this coming week. And it's nice because they're pretty healthy as it is. So it's not like, oh, they're healing guys up. They're gonna get guys back. So they're gonna have everybody back, and they're gonna be able to focus on not just healing people up, but working on things that they've been struggling with.
Right.
Where do you want to go from here? I mean, I think the elephant in the room might be with the Blackhawks.
Yeah. There's a few things I think we need to talk about there.
I mean, the first obviously is what the hell's going on with Corey Perry?
Well, whatever it was, they looked into it. They pulled him from the ice. They determined it wasn't good, that it violated their policies, and they acted on it. And you could see Kyle Davidson was very distraught doing it. And he knows that the pressure on him is 10 billion times heavier than any other team because of the team's past, despite the fact that he was not involved in it whatsoever. It's just that name is going to have him bear those sins. But they acted accordingly. They let the NHLPA know. They did their due diligence. They're not revealing details for the safety of those involved and probably for legal reasons. So That's for people who are demanding more details. There's several reasons why an entity, whether it's a sports team, a company, wouldn't give those details. They did what they could. I understand we want to know what happened, but they acted accordingly. They took action, and now Corey Perry's gone. I don't know what he did, but it clearly wasn't good. And we didn't like Corey Perry for the longest time. And then, for 3 months, hey, he might have been a good addition. Nope. So, good riddance.
It's,
Goodbye.
I don't want to jump into speculations, but it's weird because it has to have been something that's bad enough where the Players Association's informed and they're not up in arms. But we have not heard that there's criminal investigation. So
Right.
if he punched a coach or he sexually assaulted somebody or sexually harassed somebody, you know, so it's, it's you start to go, well, what category is this? Did he bring drugs into I guess that would be criminal too. Like where does this fall where it's bad enough that the Players Association goes, eee, but not to the point where the police are involved.
Yeah, and maybe said person didn't want to press charges. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I just need to know. All I need to know is one thing, and this is one question I need answered, and then I'll just shut up. Did Charles Tillman raid his house?
Yeah, seriously. And what's crazy too is remember how batshit that rumor was?
Oh, that one was wild.
That was wild. But then here we are where people talking about how he was having sexual relation with Connor Bedard's mom.
That's so dumb. And it's embarrassing that Kyle Davidson had to address that.
Yeah. It's unbelievable. I mean, the Charles Tillman raiding Hallis Hall was just stupid. This is like, really? The whole thing was batshit, and it happened out of nowhere, obviously. Like all of a sudden, he was pulled from the ice in, what was it, Columbus? They were in Columbus when they were first made aware of it. And then he was just kind of away from the team. Information will probably leak at some point, but yeah, just a very strange saga.
Yeah, it's super weird, and I don't know. Maybe we never know.
Maybe.
It's one of those mysteries of why did Roquan Smith get suspended during his rookie year, by the team.
And I don't want to speculate anything specific, but I do believe that Ryan Poles' decision to eventually trade him, and I know that it seemed like they were trying to work something out, right? But I feel like Ryan Poles trading him wasn't as bad with him, because I do think there was more going on behind the scenes than we knew.
I would guess that. I would guess that.
What it was, I have no idea, but that's just my suspicion.
But I also want to say that today's press conference threw water on my theory on what happened to Corey Perry. I was sure that they had just put him in a cage somewhere because there was a full moon and he's a werewolf. And so that clearly is not true. So I don't know what to believe anymore. He's not a werewolf. Charles Tillman didn't raid his house. What am I supposed to believe?
I don't know.
And is Corey Perry good? No. Did he add some sort of toughness and those grindy goals to keep the Blackhawks in some of these games? Yeah. Um, this Blackhawks team, you're starting to see the lack of top end talent rear its ugly head, and the masks that they had on that they were um covering up some of those flaws are starting to fall off, and we're starting to see who this team really is. And they're not terrible. It's just you see that, hey, they just need top talent. There's young players that you're seeing good things from. You're seeing progress. They're clearly a better team than they were last year. Even though they've taken a step back in talent, probably they've taken a step forward in as a team build. Um,
It's
it's
hard when you lose Taylor Hall to an ACL injury for the year.
Yeah, that was a tough one. You're really struggling here, and um, I don't know at this point where you go find more talent.
I mean, this year you are where you are, and it's going to be a lot of AHL players and young guys, and um, you're just going to have to ride it out with this year. And it's very possible you get another top 3 pick this year. I just think that's where we're at.
I
You
mean,
watch Connor Bedard play and Korchinski and some of these younger guys develop, but you're not making any improvements to this roster this year.
um, it's tough. Like some of the plans, and the good thing is the long-term plans seem to be working. we're we're developing goalie depth in this organization that we didn't have for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, we're developing defenseman depth and quality players. Um, we're developing skaters and shooters. So these long-term plans seem to be working well. The short-term band-aids don't seem to be working. The
No.
Hall was, even when he was healthy, um, you know, I don't think he added what we'd hoped. Um, but with him being out for the year, that sucks. And the Corey Perry thing sucks. Um, but it's they're gonna have to start grinding. I mean, games where they're out talented, they're just gonna have to grind those games.
Yeah.
Um, the only thing I worry about is to make sure that Blackhawks locker room doesn't accept, well, we're just a bad team and accept losses. That's If they can stop doing that, or not, or I don't know if they are, is if that mindset does not, you know, come into play, I think they're going to be okay. Is just if losing becomes acceptable or expected, that's when things start going awry.
Well, they were just up 2-0, and now Seattle scored 2 quick goals, including a shorty to tie it at the end of the first. So, yippee.
Shorties are frustrating.
Yes, they are.
Giving up goals at the end of periods has been the Achilles heel of the Blackhawks for how many years now?
Long time.
I mean,
Long time.
that was like one of Corey Crawford's fatal flaws. It's giving up those late period goals.
Yeah. Yep.
You're like, man, you played 19 minutes on your head, and then you give up a softie. It's brutal. Um, it's uh breakaway goals. It's have been a problem. Um, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in the Blackhawks. I'm not down on them. I'm
It's just
I'm
reality. It's where you are in this rebuild.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I'm not down on them because you see this path, you see the path forward, and there's a lot of good things, and we're seeing when you have like a Wayne Gretzky come out and talk about Connor Bedard and say he might be better than we thought.
Yeah,
Uh,
you like to hear that one.
yeah, you love to hear that, where the greatest to ever skate him up goes, oh hey, this kid that we thought was going to be great might even be better than that.
Yeah.
So, that's the Blackhawks in a nutshell. The
There's
Bulls on.
one
Oh,
there's
sorry.
one other Blackhawks topic I want to touch on really, really quick.
Sure.
One of, if not arguably the Blackhawks player ever, uh, is going to be playing hockey again.
Oh, Patrick Kane signing with the
The Red Wings.
Red Wings. And it's gonna suck to see him in that uniform, but honestly, like he is on the the last gasps of his career.
He's 35. He just had surgery. He's on his last leg. Detroit's no longer in our conference. The Blackhawks aren't anywhere near a contender this year.
I mean, we traded
I don't really, it's what it is what it is.
we traded him to the Rangers last year, and what did he do for them? I mean, I think they were fairly disappointed with him. Um, he had a pretty significant surgery, which we were told was not an issue, and then suddenly, oh, hey, we were right. There was an issue. Uh, but I don't know. I don't know how much he's going to give them, but you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I've seen comparisons to Chelios. I'm like, this is nothing like that.
No, it's a lot different than Chelios.
Nothing like that. Those Red Wings teams were in the prime of their Cup dynasty years. Chris Chelios still had a lot of hockey left in him. And this was after, years where the Blackhawks were trying to win a Stanley Cup, just couldn't quite get there. And when Detroit was becoming a dynasty again, this is a 1-year deal at the end of a man's career. And yeah, I genuinely hope Kane does well and plays well. I mean, Detroit's not even in our conference anymore, so it's not like you're going to be seeing him, 5-6 times this season. He's going to come to the United Center as a Red Wing once, and you're going to see him one other time on the road. That's it. It doesn't bother me. It really doesn't.
No, I mean, I'm not gonna say it doesn't bother me, but it's not gonna keep me up at night or have me grinding my teeth.
Right.
It's one of those things that go, this sucks, and then I won't think about it again until when the Blackhawks play them next.
Right.
But on the other hand, we got the Bulls. That team stinks.
The
I mean, that team absolutely stinks.
it's brutal.
You know, Zach Levine just looks like he doesn't care. Um, Kobe White looks good. Other than that, Vooch looks kind of washed. And it sucks that we gave him a bunch of money. Caruso is being wasted on this team. And you essentially have your president of the team saying, we see the same thing you're seeing and we're not happy about it. And changes are going to have to be made. I think you just got to blow things up. This running the core back did not pan out well, and you're getting blown out by Boston.
You were up by 20 points early, and you were down by double digits by the end of the first half.
Yeah.
Against the Nets.
Yeah, this team is doo-doo sandwiches.
That is an insult to doo-doo sandwiches. A complete insult to doo-doo sandwiches. And you know what? It doesn't even make me that mad. I've just completely stopped caring. It's hopeless.
Can I give you one nugget of hope?
What could it possibly be? Was this nugget dropped on the floor?
No. I pressed the sim lottery button on Tankathon one time, and guess who came up with the number one pick?
The Bulls.
The Bulls.
That's so funny because I was talking to one of my coworkers, and he was saying, "Yeah, I did the simulator like 10 times, and like 7 out of 8 times I picked 8th."
I pressed it one time, and I accidentally hit it, and the Bulls number one.
Clink, clink, clink. But can I ask this? Because I genuinely don't know. Is this upcoming draft? Is there gonna be a legit like generational star out of this draft? Sure as hell not gonna be Wembanyama. I know that. There's no LeBron. There's no Jordan. No Wembanyama. No Steph Curry. Like,
there's a Steph Castle though.
Steph Castle.
Wait, it's like a Mom, can we get a Steph Curry? We got a Steph Curry at home. And you get there and it's a Steph Castle.
Box full of sliders.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a Wembanyama. But
they're not even the same universe as being anywhere near something legit. Not even close.
I mean,
it's bad.
I'm looking at the mock draft, and at number 4 is a guy with a super European name. That's a 2 guard, or sorry, a 3. He plays the 3, and he's 7 foot. He's 7 foot, 195 pounds. That is not the right height to weight ratio.
Jeez.
That is a terrible one. He's from Hinsdale, though.
Oh God, that just if Reinsdorf has the chance to get that pick, he's going to get on the phone to AK and say, if you don't draft him, I'm gonna torture you by locking you in my office and tell long, boring stories of how I like David Eckstein and I watch the Brooklyn Dodgers. And AK is gonna be like, no, anything but that.
He's like, I'm a basketball guy. I don't even know what that means, but it's boring me to death. But yeah, this Bulls team is they're atrocious.
Bottom 3 in the NBA, I would say.
Like you've gotta sell some stuff off because this is not, Alex Caruso, you gotta set him free. And try to get what you can for Zach, because you're not building around that guy. He is, whatever offense you're trying to put together is not the offense that Zach thrives in and that Zach wants to play in. And so you're fighting tooth and nail against him to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
So here we are with under 7 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Zach LaVine has 2 points.
And he's been taken out for injury.
You don't have a single player with 20 points. It's just really sad. You're getting destroyed here by the stupid Celtics. But it is where we are. It's just where we are. You look at the rebound numbers. Bulls getting out rebounded. Caruso doesn't get enough playing time. And you gotta set that guy free for him and what you can get for him, because he's got to be high on a wish list for pretty much most contending teams.
You would think.
And I'm sure there's going to be teams that are willing to bet on Zach LaVine.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you bring him to a competent organization with a lot more talent around him, you're bringing in Robin, not Batman. So yeah, I think there would be interest, and I feel like the bridges here are so burned with him and the Bulls.
That, and you don't have a Batman here. You at best have a nest full of Robins. At best.
They get the wheel and the wheels just come off.
Robin. Robin. Where's Batman? Robin.
I mean, that pretty much sums it up.
I was listening to the pregame on my drive home, and they were talking about how the stupid in-season tournament, for Boston to win, they'd have to win this game, and then they have to win by like at least 23 points, and looks like they're gonna do that. Because they're up by 30 right now.
Yeah, I see the score. Yep. Go us.
And I can't even watch the stupid Blackhawks game because I don't have ESPN Plus.
Oh, it's on CSN Plus or NBC Plus.
What is? I don't know if I have that.
Well, it's the other NBC channel, the NBC Sports Plus. It's like a channel above NBC Sports.
Oh, I don't. I have YouTube TV.
Well, I don't. I'm not an expert on that, so I don't know.
I don't think I have that. Yeah, I don't think I have that. Oh well. Should we wrap this up with a little baseball? There's not a ton.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you just gotta wait patiently.
I don't know if you saw the story how Andre Dawson is trying to get his plaque changed in the Hall of Fame to be wearing a Cubs hat.
Hell yeah.
That was always my. Have you ever been to Cooperstown?
Yes, I have.
That's the one thing I've only been there once, but when I was there, I was just like, man, Andre Dawson should be wearing a Cubs hat. Other than that, that place might have been one of the coolest places on earth.
You know what I gotta say? I really, really loved the town and their restaurant options. There were some good eats there.
Have you ever been to Canton?
When I was 4. I barely remember it.
The NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame is is neat. It's much smaller than Cooperstown, but the there's so much Chicago Bears representation in there, and which makes it really cool because you're like, oh man, the Bears have sucked most of my lifetime, but man, they didn't always suck. So
Yeah, right.
it's cool to see that. But it would be awesome if they if they decided to honor Andre Dawson's request um and uh and change that plaque to a Cubs hat.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Um, not a ton going on. We're in that slow part of the off season. The you know December starts heating up, but um,
You got some trade rumors. I mean, the Cubs were linked to both Glasnow and Bieber, and there's a lot of smoke around Dylan Cease being traded. And I'm at kind of the point where I'd be shocked if Dylan Cease wasn't traded.
he's definitely going to get traded because they don't want to pay uh that's upcoming salary,
That
and
that
they're
that
trying.
trade could rebuild their farm system.
It could very well. Um, but I've heard the Glass Now rumors and um the Bieber rumors, and I'm not super stoked. I if I had to, I would probably. I mean, I would probably prefer Tyler Glasnow.
When Glasnow is healthy, he's really good.
Yeah. Um. You know, but I don't know. I'm not the most stoked about either one of those guys. Like unless they're going to be sort of back of the rotation, mid rotation guys. I I don't want I don't want them to be the number 2 guy. I want somebody with some real fucking heat. And
I mean, Shane Bieber was that guy a few years ago, but
yeah, but he's not that guy now.
yeah, last year, big dip in strikeouts. 3.80 ERA. Compare that to his previous 4 years before that. His FIP was 387, literally a full point higher than it was the year before. I mean, 3 years ago, this would have been one of the biggest targets in all of baseball if Cleveland was willing to sell. But I mean, you wonder if you get him at a pretty good price, a pretty good trade price, with the dedication to pitching infrastructure the Cubs have. That might be the thinking here.
I mean, his his K per 9 took a significant dip. I mean, in 2020 it was over 14 Ks per 9, and last year was 7.5. So it's almost
Big
in
drop.
half.
Big
Big
drop.
drop. Um, ground ball rate is pretty consistent. Um, BABIP up.
Which is natural when you don't miss as many bats.
Yeah. Um, walk rates. I mean, his career has been pretty.
It's still pretty good.
It's not bad. The walk rate's fine. Um, so I see some of the more advanced stats here. Load. Whip up. FIP way up. Um, barrel percent up. Hard hit percent significantly up.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the things that start causing concern.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. And again, this is one of those things where if the Cubs are really interested in, then you feel pretty confident that they think they can fix him.
I mean, that's possible.
And they could just be. This might all just be them getting a temperature check on the trade pitching market.
I mean, that's a possibility too. That's a possibility too. Um, I just I do want to see some moves because I mean the, Jed has said it. Craig Counsell has said it. Um, you this team has the good bones, but you've got to do a lot of work if you're expecting them to be where you want them to be.
Right.
Um, so there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, and I'm with between the trade market and free agency. There's uh there's a lot of room for them to operate. It's just they've got to do it. I mean, we're still way early, but um, you know, there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at Tyler
You've
Glass
seen,
now.
in Glass now, I just, there's health worries, but I mean, like I said, when he's on, he's on.
Yeah, in I
And
think
the Tampa Bay Rays have a pretty good history of pitching.
yeah, he would be more interesting. He's a little older, but he's more interesting to me. Unless they really think that they can figure out Shane Bieber back to what he was just a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and you know the Shohei Otani thing. It's I don't know. I mean, we've heard that he wants to sign sooner rather than later. Um, but we're not getting any hints what his camp is thinking, what he's thinking.
No, we just know teams that are interested, and it's a number of them. And the Dodgers have the best odds, but I'm starting to worry a little bit more about the Giants.
I mean, the Giants are my dark horse. I think you know they're on the West Coast, which I've never heard him say or his camp say that that's important to them, but enough people have said it's important that it makes you go, all right, it probably has some level of importance to being on the closer to Japan.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
it's really an assumption, but it makes sense.
um, so I, uh, I still I'm just excited and I'm hoping that he signs soon. That would be a great way to ease the rest of the
We need some good
hot.
news,
We
man.
do. We do. I mean, if you come out and you're like, "Oh, hey, they re-signed Bellinger and they're still in on like
Yamamoto or
yeah, Yamamoto or Otani." Um, I mean, that's probably if you bring in one of the Japanese pitchers and you have one of the Japanese pitchers and you've got Seiya Suzuki, that's got to be a good selling point to get Shohei Otani. I mean, part of the thing is that you got to add a comfort level to the man being here
oh, of
and
course.
and having several Japanese players. I mean, we saw how important that was for the White Sox with Cuban players.
Yeah.
You know, if you can bring that comfort level to a Japanese players, regarding the Cubs, that's just huge.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's. Part of me is really trying not to get my hopes up, but
Yeah, I
it
mean,
seems clear to me that the Cubs do want him.
oh, I'm sure they want him.
I mean, there's a difference though between wanting him and being legit in on him. Every team would love to have Shohei Ohtani, but there are clearly teams that are not willing to be in the race. Oh, Jerry Reinsdorf, we're not going to be in the Ohtani race. I used to watch the Brooklyn Dodgers. I like David Eckstein. My best friend is Tony La Russa. I don't like it when you say bad things about my friend Tony.
uh,
I just want the feeling of that Monday afternoon when we found out that Craig Counsell was going to be our next manager. That is a feeling of glee that we haven't really felt about any Chicago sports team in a long time. I mean, the only other time was probably winning the lottery so we could draft Connor Bedard.
that was pretty big.
I mean, the biggest moments over the year for the city have been getting the first overall pick because you've been shit. Think about it. And then we finally got, wow, here's Craig Counsell. Great. The teams are all still losing. Give me more. Please. I'm begging. Even though the Bears won yesterday, we want something to be happy about, because even with the win, there was kind of a feeling after it. Just give me something to be happy about, man.
Yeah. But
It's final, by the way, in Boston, 124-97.
Oof. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to the point in MLB where the hot stove is going to start heating up. You're going to start seeing some trades. You're going to start seeing some signings. And looking at the 5 takeaways from the GM's meeting. Oh, look, people want Shohei Ohtani. Thanks, MLB.com.
Gee.
Most of executives believe he'll sign with the Dodgers, but the other clubs that are in the race: Giants, Mets, Red Sox, and Cubs.
When they say most executives think he'll sign with the Dodger, I mean, are they just basing that off what they believe, or I would assume?
I'm not sure.
My hope is that their guess is as good as ours, so it gives us some hope.
Which is garbage. Our prognostication skills.
Yeah. I'm really just trying to prepare for disappointment.
I mean, but with the winter meetings are what, this coming weekend?
Yeah, they're coming.
Yeah,
they're coming in hot
in Nashville. We have a Swerski road trip down there with our fake mustaches.
I say what we do is we go down there and we do some hypnosis. We're going to need a lot of work. We're going to hypnotize the Dodgers not to sign him, and we're going to hypnotize Tom Ricketts to do whatever necessary to get him. It's a foolproof plan.
You can reserve a spot for the MLB winter meetings.
You're giving me ideas, and they're not good ones.
There's an Eventbrite for it.
You're giving me ideas. You might be giving yourself ideas.
I'm talking myself into it mentally. Look at that. All right.
So, Otani, what was your decision to sign with the Cubs? Well, apparently the Cubs were talked into it by this meatball that was going off and just spewing meatball sauce everywhere and was clinking a freaking pitcher full of Kool-Aid.
He kept saying, he's like, we can easily convert our Marty Havlat crockpot into a Shohei Otani crockpot. We've got the manufacturers on standby, ready to make the mid-run change. Yeah, but so, I mean, I imagine after this coming weekend, we're gonna start seeing moves start to be made.
Yeah, absolutely.
The last couple of years we've seen some slow movement because coming back from the downturn in profitability for baseball. I think this year you're going to see. I think Bellinger probably signs later. I don't
Yeah,
think he
Boris
signs
is going to
early.
hold them out.
Yeah, which is good. I think it's good for the Cubs. Because it allows them to try to see what other marks they can hit. And names that make sense. I think Bellinger makes sense. Otani makes sense. Rhys Hoskins makes sense. Um, adding another starting pitcher makes sense. Rebuilding that bullpen makes a whole lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of moves to be made. And then the other side of town, well, you've got Tim Anderson's replacement.
Good old Paul DeYoung, who will probably play half a season, and then Colson Montgomery will come up.
Yeah.
He's
And
just a placeholder.
and you know why that was such a Sox move? He signed a 1-year, $1.75 million contract.
Yeah, that nice and cheap.
I'm just reading about. So when he debuted in 2017, he had 25 home runs in his first 108 major league games. Slash line of 285, 325, 532 with a WRC plus of 123. And then this WRC plus dropped to 103 in 2018, then 101, then 87, then 84, and then 54. Um,
Seemed like he always killed the Cubs.
Still, his last year, his slash line was 233, 297, 412. So yeah, that's in 44 appearances with the Blue Jays, he hit 0.068 with an on-base percentage of 0.068 and a slugging of 0.068
Mm.
and a 41% strikeout rate.
Yeesh.
He went to the Giants for a bit, and his slash line there was 184, 180, and 286. So they're going to replace Tim Anderson's terrible slash line with an even worse one.
Well, hopefully you just have to deal with it for a few months.
Oh, that's such a White Sox move, though.
Oh, I mean, as soon as I saw Paul DeJong as a free agent, I'm like, watch, he's going to sign there.
Uh, I mean, I I I would. Do I think Eloy is going to get traded? I would say we're probably 60-40. Yes, that he's going to be
Yeah.
traded.
Yep. I agree. I agree.
Um, and I get Chris Getz as to rebuild the farm system, and he's gonna do a rebuild. He's
Hmm.
gonna do a rebuild. Um, but uh, it's it just sucks that the team the team has had how many rebuilds in the last 10 years?
Well, this will be your second since 2016. And then you kind of tried to retool that time in the 14-15 offseason where Rick Hahn and Kenny Williams thought the likes of Melky Cabrera and Todd Frazier and Adam Meaton were going to be the solutions to their problems, and they weren't. But yeah, it's yet another transition.
And it sucks. It sucks for those fans. And it's what's even worse is this an earnest rebuild? Are they genuinely trying to win? Or is this going to be Jerry's way of cheaping out again and stringing along fans?
I mean, I think Getz himself is going to try to rebuild this, but he's going to be under Reinsdorf's budget.
And if he tries to make a move that might make sense and make this team better, is he going to get shut down by Jerry? How much freedom and flexibility does he have?
I don't know.
Is it hey, as long as you stay under this budget, you're good? Or is it anytime he tries to have a contract of any significance that Jerry's there going, let me look at this. Tony, Tony, set your drink down. What do you think about this? Give me those keys. Don't be driving in this state.
What's going on? What do you want? What do you?
So I don't know if this is an in earnest rebuild. And, it may be a perspective thing. Like you said, to Chris Getz, like, hey, yeah, we're trying to win. But if you look at a Reinsdorf perspective, it's, well, we'll try to win ish. Like, if we win making money, then cool. But if the way the Marlins did, cool. But if we don't, meh, who cares? We're still making money. Which is weird because he acknowledges that he's coming towards the end of his time on this earth. He's got enough money to do whatever it is he wants. Why wouldn't he want to go out and try to be a winner? Like, that's the weird part to me. Like, it's one thing if, like, oh, he needed soup for his family because they were starving. And it's like, well, I got to take it out of the baseball budget to feed my family. He's rich beyond most people's wildest dreams. And if he was struggling, he could sell this team for a lot of money and live the rest of his days on the beach, drinking margaritas. But he instead is running this organization and not trying to win. Like, why are you trying to squeeze every dollar you can out of this? Like, isn't the joy trying to win?
Sometimes I think he does want to win. He's just deluded, thinking the ways to win just aren't right.
Like, we're inching closer and closer to the White Sox being the only team to not give $100 million contract out ever.
It's crazy.
I mean, we're getting Pretty darn close.
I mean,
I think
you're
I
in the
think it's
third biggest market. That's crazy.
I think there's 3 teams that haven't given $100 million contract.
The A's, or did the Rays give Wander Franco a 100?
Yes.
Well, we see how that's going.
uh
So it's A's, White Sox, and Brewers. Oh no,
Pirates.
didn't the Brewers, Pirates? Yeah, the Pirates paid like Ryan Braun, or I don't know if Ryan Braun got that much money, but was it Christian Yelich that got a lot of money?
Wait, hold on. No, did the Pirates? No,
I
Pirates just
don't.
did it. Sorry, Pirates gave it to Brian Reynolds.
Oh, right.
So
Really, it was
it's
really. Oh, okay, okay.
it's Royals, White Sox, and
Royals.
A's.
Oh, if the Royals don't do it, no way in hell the White Sox are doing it.
The largest contract in Oakland A's history is Eric Chavez's $66 million contract.
Eric Chavez.
And what's the Royals' biggest contract?
Is it Alex Gordon?
Alex Gordon, 4 years,
Shit,
$72 million.
that's right. I was right.
Yep.
Well, how about that?
Yeah, here we go. Largest contract in any team's history. Angels, Trout. Astros, Altuve. A's, Chavez. 6 years, $66 million. Blue Jays, George Springer. 6 years, 150. Braves, Austin Riley, 10-year, 212. Brewers, Christian Yelich, 7 years, 188.5. Cardinals, Paul Goldschmidt, 5 for 130. Cubs, Jason Hayward, 8 for 184. Diamondbacks, Greinke, 6 for 206. Giants, Mookie Betts, 12 for 365. Giants, Buster Posey, 8 for 159. Guardians, Jose Ramirez, 7 for 129. Mariners, Robbie Cano, 10 for 240. Marlins, Giancarlo Stanton,
Young Claude.
Jean-Claude Stanton,
Oh,
Jean-Claude
I
Stanton,
am Jean-Claude Stanton. Oh.
13 for 325. Mets, Francisco Lindor, 10 for 341. Nationals, Strasburg, 7 for 245. Orioles, Chris Davis, 7, 161. Padres, Tatis, 14 for 340. Phillies, Harper, 13 for 330. Pirates, Brian Reynolds, 7 for 106. Corey Seager, Wander Franco, Rafael Devers, Joey Votto, Nolan Arenado, Salvador Perez. So sorry, Salvador Perez is the highest one, 4 for 82 with the Royals.
Okay, I was gonna say that does make sense.
Yeah, and White Sox, Andrew Benintendi, 5 for 75. So
I'd pay
three
David
teams.
Eckstein $100,000 million.
I would pay him 100 million space bucks. Yeah, it's frustrating. They're not gonna. It's not gonna happen this year. There's gonna be no $100 million contracts.
No, I mean no.
So, I mean, I don't think any of those 3 teams are inching towards $100 million contract anytime soon. The only possibility is once the A's move to Vegas, maybe they'll make a big contract to make a splash.
When are they gonna actually move?
I don't know. Don't they have to build a stadium still?
Yeah, so how long is that gonna be?
I don't know.
Because I can tell you right now, I think the A's legit might average like less than 5,000 fans a game. while they're in Oakland. While they're in Oakland still, they'll draw when they move to Vegas. But
2027.
okay, so 24, 25, 26. You have 3 more years of being in Oakland. Why in the world would you go to those games?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I'd be pissed if my favorite team just decided to move and did the fans dirty. Now I'd be done.
The only people who are going to be at those games are probably going to be fans of the other team.
It's a possibility.
Think about how dirt cheap those tickets are going to be.
So
nobody's going to want to go.
So they've got probably 3 years before they'll do a $100 million contract. Is there anybody on the Royals that's young and due for a contract?
On the Royals?
Yeah. I don't think so. So I mean, it's gonna be the Royals and the White Sox duking it out for being cheap.
And the White Sox will double down because they want to emulate the Royals.
Oh God. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Nope, I think I've said my piece.
I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether that's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That would grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X, or AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.